Hi there, I'm Alex Moss, and this is SEO in 2024 Additional Insights.
Alex, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2024?
Do not let AI take over your content. Be creative, helpful, and unique storytelling will always shine through the mediocre efforts of others.
So why not? You've given a summary of, what you can add to AI. What's the reason that you don't want to give AI full control over your content creation?
Well, if I think of my own brand, let's say I've just got my own brand and I am the founder of it, I'm the most passionate person about that business and that brand and that product or service. And I wouldn't want a machine, at least a robot or an LLM, at least at this period in time, to take over that work for me. There's a couple of reasons for that. Robotic LLMs are in fact robotic. So I like to think that sometimes when I read something, I definitely when I'm reading AI content, I do believe I know that it's AI content. And I also believe that if it is AI content, but I'm being told that it's from a person, if I think that I might be duped, I'm actually going to trust your brand and you less. So that's one element. The other element is scaling content is extremely, for me, quite a no-no. And if again, you're just producing content for the search engine or primarily for the search engine to get attention or visibility in the SERPs, the long-term goal is that's not going to happen for you. It might work in the short term. And I'm sure you'll see lots of people on LinkedIn and X going, hey, here's an AI-powered niche site that I've got and look how well it's performing. My question would be, well, check back in 3 months and ask that person again how it's doing, because it probably won't be very well. And then you go back to human-produced content. There's nothing more creative than the human brain, especially collaborative human brains, to create actual thought leadership pieces, which are creative, informative, and primarily for the user, and not just for the search engine and the search results. And as a result, that content will shine through because it will be deemed more helpful by the user, and therefore it will be looked at favorably within Google's search rankings or systems, whatever you want to call it.
So one of the phrases that you used there was, at this point in time, the LLMs are producing a fairly robotic output. So they're improving significantly, quickly. How long are we looking at before we can pass the baton over to the AI to create all the content we want?
Well, I guess that's two questions in a way. The first question is, how long will it take for the LLM to be that much better that you cannot tell whatsoever that it's a human or a robot? You can't distinguish. My answer would be within 5 years. In 5 years, if they're talking about singularity, then I'm going to go with, if these LLMs are going to be cleverer than every human on the planet, then I think they're going to be clever enough to be able to suss out content writing in the same amount of time, if they're that intelligent, which they will be. The other kind of question would be, at that point in time, should you then move to actually letting AI take over your content? And even then I'd say no. If you can help it, never do it. It should always be human output, in a way that humans will always feel duped if you bought a book, a novel, and you read through it and you thought it was great, and then afterwards you found out that it was all created by AI, I feel psychologically as though I got done over because a robot led me through the story. Even it may have been a great story, but I feel like the human producing that story and the art of storytelling is going to be owned by the human still for a long time. I personally believe. I think that they're great at interpreting what we've done thus far, but I don't think 40 years ago, if AI existed, they would have created the next Tarantino in filmmaking. Tarantino's Tarantino, and only his mind can create that thing that created a new genre and influenced a whole bunch of other filmmakers after him. That's just one example of how a human, I think, can't do what AI can do. They can't make true creativity yet.
Absolutely. LLMs are trained upon what humans have done in the past. The challenge is to get that creativity and come up with something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, they're trying to mimic us, but they aren't us. And unfortunately for them, no matter how much they have maybe a mind or or consciousness, they're never going to be us. They're never going to be the human brain. They can't actually replicate it exactly. They can only keep guessing, because that's what LLMs are. They're guessing the right answer, and generally they're right. That's all they can do, is interpret what we are as a species or through our mind. And therefore, that's why it's so hard to regenerate content that would have been done by a human, because they can't get that 1% of what makes us us.
So what's a good role of incorporating AI in the content creation process now?
As I always say, I'd say think of it as your assistant. It can help in many ways, from ideation to stopping writer's block, creating summaries, or helping expand on something. But again, it's not just like ChatGPT. I think it's called Perplexity AI. Yeah, I'm sure it's called Perplexity. That's another kind of like ChatGPT, but it actually outputs as an experience like a SIR. And it's very, very good for more academic research, that kind of stuff. So if you were looking at, I don't know, American history, it would bring up American history, but it would cite sources in a way that an SEO is going to love, right? Because it's bringing something from the web and it's saying, this is where I'm getting this information and providing it to you from. And also gives you further reading. So it's going to help you with that. But what it's doing is complementing your own thought process. That's what it should be doing. And that's what you should be doing. It should be helping you lead your own way, but you should still be in the lead. You should still be the decision maker, and you should still be the editor when you're publishing anything. That's what I do. And it helps out your day, organization, that kind of thing. It helps you be your own project manager. But when it comes to content creation, ideation, help with your own creativity and maybe thinking about things you may not have thought of by reading what you've written so far and asking, what else have I not thought of thus far that maybe a user's going to find helpful?
Yeah, that citation aspect of AI is incredibly important, and it's what search engines thrive on. Search engines are looking for links. They're looking for reasons why you came up with a piece of content, and what piece of content you expanded on to perhaps create what you're doing as well. And it's funny that some search engines aren't necessarily that good at citing where they got the results from, and perhaps they have to improve on that. So how do you actually know if you're using AI too much at the moment? Is it all down to the quality of the content that's produced, and perhaps the lack of that individual opinion, quotes, elements of from thought leaders within your organization that isn't being incorporated in your piece of content?
Yeah, well, there's always going to be a ceiling that you're going to hit, aren't you, about capacity? And if you're scaling content to a degree that you're not going to get a team to bring out well thought out pieces, like you say, from citations from other sources or with input from other humans, it's always going to be hard to really, really, truly scale that content. And as well as that, Google are kind of cutting down. They're putting that in their spam policies that you shouldn't be scaling content or creating content for content's sake, which has kind of always been the ethos anyway. But again, I go back to the original Webmaster Guidelines. Again, it's not really veered away from its original guidelines that were made 20 odd years ago. Don't try and abuse the system. Don't try and do something just for the sake of being more visible on search engines, because in the long term, it's going to be much harder. And from what we've seen from HCU, if you keep on doing that, it won't just hurt those pages. It will hurt your entire domain, and it will hurt it until you rectify it. So the worse you create the problem, the bigger the hole you're going to have to dig yourself out of in X amount of months or years when Google does finally fill whatever hole you're trying to fill. That's what some SEOs do. They try and go through a loophole and instead don't think about the loopholes. Just do as they're saying, and you'll probably find that what you will be doing naturally to try and grow the visibility is the best and most natural way to do things anyway.
Can you teach AI to be on brand now and speak in a manner that is relevant and suitable for your organization?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's not creating its own. It has to interpret what you've done so far. So it can maybe take posts that I've written in the past and understand how I write. But again, I'm still going to check that to make sure that is what I wrote. I guess from a Yoast point of view, I could say, check out yoast.com, read it all, ingest it, understand the tone of voice. And here's what we've got from our notes of brand guidelines on writing and editorial. Use that and adopt that when you then create this bit of content. And again, in the next 5 years, that'll become much better. But as time's gone on, you also have to think, you have to be very specific in some of these LLMs. You have to be really specific, because the more vague you are, the more chances of hallucination, and therefore there's more editorial. And then by the end of it, you're like, I've spent 80% of the time trying to make AI deal with this piece of, I could have just written it myself. And at that point, it would have again been more natural, and had the AI platform just helped you do your job better rather than delegating that job back to the machine. That'll make your content come out a bit more than everyone else who may be doing scaled AI content as well. And remember, mediocrity is going to become more common as time goes on. And as well as that, real estate on SERPs is going to be harder. If SGE is going to work exactly the way that it's been showing, it's not 10 links now, it's 2 or 3. So that means that your fight to get onto those rankings on those 3 positions is much harder than being position 8 on the 10. And therefore it's actually going to be more valuable to do more unique and natural SEO that's helpful for the user, which again, AI is going to not complement as much as if you're leading it.
Mediocrity is becoming more common. I love that saying, but I think it's actually motivating in that it shows you as a brand marketer that if you do something a little bit different, then you do still have the opportunity to bring in that organic traffic, because maybe other people aren't trying as hard. They're just using AI a little bit too much and just being the same as everyone else as well. I also liked your advice about brand guidelines and actually having a piece of content that talks about what is right for your brand. And normally you would have that brand guideline as perhaps an internal resource document. But if you have that online, some orphan page, then you can give that LLM access to that and hopefully better guide them towards writing on behalf of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. And it will get better to do that. But again, to me, if an LLM's writing something, I wouldn't just hit publish. And I know that there have been platforms that offer that, and they pulled those things back, or they're not scaling it as much as they were 6 months, 9 months ago. And that's because I think people are sussing out that maybe you can't just say, write 10 pieces of content for me every single day and connect it via IFT or whatever you're doing to automatically publish something and get DALL-E to create the images for the post. It can all be done, but what's the point when, especially the bigger the brand, the more's at stake for your domain authority as well. So if I was a big brand, I would, like for Yoast.com, I would never, ever, ever sacrifice the whole domain's authority for the sake of being lazy, which is kind of what you may be doing. I think just letting AI write your content is lazy. Like if you're going to don't do that. And then in 2 years time, maybe realize, you can't complain that AI has taken your job. When you've literally delegated that job to AI, there's got to be a limit at which you do it. So you have to be the best at using AI to your advantage rather than letting AI do your job, because it will take it over in that case.
Funny, I was saying them. Is them the right pronoun for an LLM?
I don't know. I think it's a thing, because it isn't a life. It isn't a biological form. It's a machine. It's an it. That's all I take from it. But then when I say they or them, I'm thinking that LLMs are a collective of lots of different synthetic brains. So I think of them as an audience, not one element, if you know what I mean. Because you can ask it 2 very different questions and it will give you the answer instantly as though it's the same person, right? That's what you're conversing with. So you can ask it about creative content, and then telling it to diagnose PHP errors, and kind of like in the same conversation as well. So it's like having many, many minds to help you out, which is why I say that.
So your advice in general was to be more creative, helpful, and unique in your storytelling. How do you measure the impact of that? How do you decide that you have achieved some form of success in doing that?
Brand visibility. Don't just think of SERPs and search results and now I'm ranking higher or I'm ranking for more things. I've been saying it a lot, especially more recently. It's not just SEO anymore. In my opinion, SEO is an element of a whole search experience. Ranking is just one element. Ranking for a keyword is one element of a tough battle you have to get a conversion or whatever the goal is for you, whether that's collecting an email address, buying product, contacting you, or whatever the event or the CTA may be or the conversion may be. I think those are the best things to measure by, but also the brand recognition and the people within it. So if I if we talk about authority and EEAT, which isn't a ranking factor, but I still think it's really important because people love people and authority that goes around those people. I think that will become more important. And I think that the success around that, around social platforms and visits around that, is actually just as important as just generic organic visits from the SERP. So I'd say think wider on the KPIs and I think about it from even the SEO update that we do at Yoast. We do it every month and it's going up and up and up every month. And I'd love to attribute all of that success to, say, me and Carolyn as hosts, but I also am self-aware that there are other variables at play, like Naringa, who sorts out all the email marketing for it. She's doing an improved job over the month. So is it that? Or is it a combination of all of these things? Is it what we're covering? There's so many things that you can't really measure what that growth is, but as long as you're part of a bigger team that's looking at the growth together, then it's good. And you should be working more. You shouldn't just be isolated in SEO. You should get into the marketing team, get into the product team and have input, because it really is important. If the leadership doesn't think you're important, you have to remind yourself you are being paid to be there to have that knowledge, and it should be partaken by others, because you do know more than the people above you because they're concentrating on other elements of the business. And our specialism is the search experience in general. And it's not just an engine we need to optimize, or just one engine we need to optimize. It's moving forward. You've got things like TikTok, which some people consider a search engine. I still call it a social platform, a very, very popular social platform, but a social platform nevertheless. But if people are talking about TikTok SEO, those two words to me don't go hand in hand. It's TikTok optimization, because that's the platform. And I think that's how it'll go wider and wider as more things come out, more AI tools are used, and it'll be more important, like you say, to have links, to have things like schema and connect all of these entities together. That'll be really important for LLMs because it'll be easier to read structured data rather than flat data, right?
Absolutely. Well, you've shared what SEO should be doing in 2024. Now let's talk about what SEO shouldn't be doing. So what's something that's seductive in terms of time, but ultimately counterproductive? What's something that SEO shouldn't be doing in 2024?
Content automation. Kind of what I was insinuating before. Don't put your site into cruise control in any way. If you're automating it, be clever. Do something creative around it, but don't just let an LLM connect to your WordPress site, for example, and go, every day, I want you to talk about this based on our tone of voice and what we sell in the brand, and then publish it. And you can do that. And there are ways of doing that. I would say write less. Less is more at the moment, in my opinion. If you have a great thought leadership piece that covers a really specific topic, concentrate on that instead of getting 5 blogs out this month, because that latter KPI is for the search engine and the format is for your users. And the first will really cement your brand. It'll give you more chance of links, give you more authority, and therefore get more chance of being cited in things like an LLM.
Alex Moss is Principal SEO at Yoast and co-founder at Firecask. And you can find him over at alex-moss.co.uk. Alex, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2024.
Thanks very much, David. Thanks for having me.
I've been your host, David Bain. You've been listening to an episode of SEO in 2024 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original SEO in 2024 podcast, video series, and book. Find out more at SEOin2024.com.